Hey, it's me again. So this is my first time to try to make videos on YouTube, and apparently my phone didn't have enough storage, so we're continuing where we left off. Now I've switched to my webcam on my computer. It's really not as high resolution. Anyway, okay, so let's pick up where we left off, which was me describing why Enneagram is a dynamic system instead of a static personality typology. Okay, so what I was saying was without intention, in other words, if we don't know what the different parts of human personality are, then there's no way for us to know which one of the 9 types of human personality we are coming out of at any given moment. So the example I was giving was if you are a type 4, there will be times as a type 4 where you just naturally shift into looking like an Enneagram type 3. And you won't even know it, but literally, like, in a sense, your goals in that moment will change. Or as a type 4, you could drift into being an Enneagram type 5. And Enneagram also teaches that we go to other numbers across the circle. So here's the gist of it. Here's the big picture. If there are 9 ways of being human, and if all of us originate in one of those 9 ways, which we most assuredly do, then to discover ourselves more in depth is to understand that you, my friend, are not nailed down to any particular number because you are not a typology. You are a very sophisticated and complicated human being. So what we can learn to do, and other types of personality science back this up too. This isn't just Enneagram theory. I am weaving together a lot of different concepts here. But what we know about personality is that although you have ways that you are prone to being, just like the way you are most of the time, obviously you can shift out of that at will or with intention and show up as a different way. So let me give you just a simplistic example. If you are the type of person who likes to have fun all the time and enjoy life and just celebrate life and play and laugh and giggle, okay, that's one way of being, and some of us are rooted in that type of being. However, for all of us, there are times to be serious, and there are times to focus on our work and put in hard work and not necessarily be playful. Okay, that's a simplistic example. Or another example is some of us are wired to be very extroverted, to pursue things and to be out in the world and to be active and engaging with people and with ideas and with concepts. And some of us are more wired to be introverted, more withdrawn, more quiet, more maybe like self-contained. So there's a time to be extroverted and there is a time to be introverted. And you know this because you know that you have to adapt to certain situations. Now, some people by nature are more adaptable than others, but the fact of the matter is, no matter who you are, and even if you have not been practicing the behavior of adapting or of showing up in a different way than how you normally show up, you are capable of doing that. If you don't do it, I mean, you do it anyway, but if you don't do it with intention, you'll already automatically do it from time to time. But what Enneagram work can teach you, and what my coaching and with my clients, what we focus on is knowing yourself very in depth. That's the starting point. And then also knowing what it would be for you to look like if you need to change your come from to better adapt to circumstances or people or situations in your life. So that's big picture what Enneagram coaching can help us to do. It helps us to learn that there's more than one way of being a human, and all of the ways are valid, and they all have their strengths and they all have their blind spots, and they come out of many different frameworks, which we will dive into more in the future, but so just a little teaser here. Some of us operate more out of an intuition, out of just a gut feeling. Some of us operate more out of our emotions or our heart space. And some of us operate more out of cerebral capacities and mental strategizing. And those are all valid ways of being in the world. But for instance, if you only operate out of your heart and you don't often use your mind, that's going to be a problem. And vice versa. If you only operate out of your mind and you never use your heart, that's going to be a problem. And yet, most of us do tend to overuse certain parts of the human personality spectrum and underuse other parts. Another metaphor that I find helpful is thinking of it as each of the 9 personality types can represent a different toolbox. And you have a different set of tools in each of those 9 boxes. And the one thing we know about work and life is having the appropriate tool for the job is a very important part of a successful life. So our original Enneagram number comes with a certain set of tools that are good and useful and helpful. And we can learn how to use other tools from the other types because it is a dynamic system. Because whatever type you come from, you are not only and exclusively fully defined by that type. And in fact, the more work you do, the more you can expand yourself or make yourself more sophisticated so that you can show up in more than one way. Which you're already doing anyway, but you're probably doing it now without intention. So you can learn what those ways are, what it would look like. So with our example of, let's say you come from 4 space, you can learn what it is to look like a 1. You can learn what it is to look like a 2. You can learn what it is to go over to 7. You can learn what it is to look like all of these different ways of being human. And that gives you a broader toolbox and more options for how to respond to things in life. Because if you're paying attention, you've probably noticed that you have a certain come from that you do on a regular basis. It's probably feedback that you've had from friends and family and coworkers, and that it's like, oh, you always do this one thing. And if you're honest, you might say, yeah, I do always do that one thing. Why do I always do that one thing? Well, Enneagram can help you figure out why you do the thing and what's underneath you doing the thing and what motivations you have. And that's why it is a dynamic system, because it helps you to start making sense of why you do what you do. Okay, so 2 things I've spoken of so far that separate Enneagram from other personality typologies. The first one is that if you wish, you can use it for spiritual development, which I highly recommend, although it's not necessary. You could keep it on a psychological level only. The second thing is it's dynamic instead of static. So even though you are your core type for your whole life, you've always been that type, you always will be that type. I hate to tell you, you did not break the Enneagram. Some people think they've changed types. You have not changed types. But what you might be noticing is that you don't only come from one type. That is certainly true. But your home base is always your home base from the day you were born till the day you die. Another thing that separates Enneagram from other personality typologies is that it deals with motivations rather than just the external behaviors that people can observe. So let's go back to the idea of somebody being extroverted. People can be extroverted for different reasons. You can be extroverted because you're trying to get people to like you. That's one valid reason for somebody to show up extroverted. You can also be extroverted because you're trying to acquire things, because you are trying to gain something that you don't have and you want to have more. And so that can make you show up in an extroverted way. It's not related to people. It's just, you just want to get more things. Or you could be extroverted because you're trying to impress people. Maybe you're trying to be extroverted to gain power or greater agency. Maybe you just want people to love you. Maybe that's why you're extroverted. You think that if the more extroverted you are, the more likable you are. So the external behavior of being extroverted simply, that's just one layer, right? The way we show up is one layer, but why we do what we do, that's what Enneagram helps us to understand. And what's really wild about Enneagram is most of us probably are not familiar with why we're doing what we're doing. But when you really explore Enneagram and learn what's behind the behaviors, it unlocks a whole world of really kind of, it's sadly, most of it is out of brokenness. So in other words, back to the spiritual concept, what if I could generalize what's happening with all of us in Enneagram, what Enneagram helps us to learn is there is a way in which all of us have lost awareness of our connection with goodness or with God. And as each of the 9 types of people forget or go to sleep to or don't recognize the way that we are connected to the divine, we try to, in our own strength, fix that brokenness. And we try to do with our personalities what only spiritual healing can actually do. And so our ego or our personality is, in some sense, it's a crutch that we develop in our own strength and with our own capabilities to try to restore a connection to the divine that has been broken. And the truth of the matter is, and this is why it's good news, actually, if we would just return back to God, return back to our original connection to the divine and to who we are as children of God, which you most certainly are, whether or not you know it, I believe that you are made in the image of a loving, good, generous, kind, peaceful God. And your work is something to do with how you bring the goodness of that divine God to earth through you, through yourself. Like, you are a conduit of the divine. That is your highest calling. And there are there are infinite ways that you can do that. But that's what you're here to do. You're here to bring goodness and kindness and grace and mercy and compassion and healing and strength to the world. And when we forget that, which we all certainly do at certain times, we try to create other ways of filling that void, and they inevitably never work. But anyway, that's what causes an ego. That's one way you could describe how the ego is formed. And so Enneagram helps you see where you've lost the connection. You could, in a spiritual sense, have it learn to direct yourself back to God, and then you can live from that place. Okay, so that was my entry. That's my first day. I'm sorry, this is part 2 of my first attempt here at creating YouTube videos. So yeah, I hope to hear from you soon. I plan to do some videos at least weekly. My goal is that this could be used as some kind of guide for people just trying to get basic life coach information, basic ideas on how to improve their lives. But also for my current clients, this investigates a little bit more deeply some of the concepts that we don't necessarily go over in all of the calls. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.